Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're at. Welcome to the Ashtoware webinar. My name's Ryan Fragapane. I'm a project director here at Ashtoware. I'm going to give it about another minute or two here for everyone to trickle in. We have about 90 folks registered for today's webinar, so I want to give it a minute, get everyone in, then I'll go through a little bit of IT stuff, things for the webinar, and then I will hand it over. All right, everyone. So I have about three past the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started so that way we finish on time. Like I mentioned, my name's Ryan Fragapane. I'm product director here at Ashtoware. And thank you for attending the webinar on Ashtoware safety and how states utilize safety data in their most important processes. I think it's going to be a great webinar. I'm really excited for this one. And thank you for all the states that volunteered to present for us today. So I really appreciate it. A few housekeeping things. We are recording the webinar, so just so everyone's aware, we are recording it and we will make the webinar available after. It'll probably won't go live today. It'll probably go live tomorrow, but there'll be an email sent out to everybody who registered. So if they couldn't make it or a coworker couldn't make it, but they did register, they'll receive a copy of the recording and also be posted to the website. So you can access it at our website as well. Because we're recording, everyone's going to be muted. So right now, everybody is muted. If you do have a question, there's a Q&A box on the bottom. So if you hover your cursor over the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A box. If you have a question throughout the presentation, go ahead and type that in. Each presenter will handle questions slightly differently, but as the questions come up, they'll either try to answer them through the presentation or we'll get to those questions at the end. If we end up running out of time today and we get to our hour and we still have some questions left, still keep typing the questions in. We'll query all those questions at the end. We'll answer all those questions and send out the questions with all the responses to all the attendees after, so everyone has all the answers to those questions as well. Also, if you'd like, there's also a raise hand feature. You can raise your hand, and at the end, I can unmute you, but we won't do that till the very end, just to make sure all our presenters have time to speak. So with that, thank you again for attending, and I'll hand it over to Greg.
Right. Thanks, Ryan. Welcome, everyone. We are excited to be here today for our webinar. Today, we have actually a really exciting topic that I'm pretty excited to talk about. Kind of by way of intro on today's topic, I want to just talk really quickly about our Ashtoware Safety User Committee meeting that we had last September in Kalispell, Montana. For everyone who was able to make it, it was a fantastic turnout. We had a great group of people who were able to show up. This is my personal favorite meeting of the year. I love to see all of our users get together and talk. One of the most popular things that comes out of this meeting every year is states discussing their safety processes, what they're doing, how they're using Ashtoware Safety to be successful and to improve safety in their state. And today's webinar is actually kind of inspired off of that conversation. So as we were meeting in Montana in September, we were talking and said, hey, this is a great conversation. This is what we need to share. I wish everyone could sit in and listen to the conversation that's going on. So we're kind of using that as inspiration for our webinar today. We actually have invited a couple, we've got about 4 different states and 4 different guests that are going to be sharing some of their unique safety processes that they do and how they use Ashtoware Safety to help them be successful with that. The thing I love about these topics is some of them are, kind of, smaller scale initiatives. Some are, larger scale initiatives. Some required, just a little bit of effort to get things up and running. Some required a lot of effort to get things up and running. But I love that kind of diversity of it and seeing the experience that everyone has had with AASHTO safety and driving and improving safety in their state. So that's kind of how we're going to be approaching the webinar today is we're going to be taking a look at these safety processes, and we're going to be discussing how states actually utilize this safety data in those processes. So with that in mind, we are going to essentially just dive into these safety process presentations. As you can see, we've got 4 different state representatives here, and there's the 4 different processes that they're going to be sharing. And then at the end, we will have a few minutes for a Q&A. As Ryan mentioned, I would encourage you all to just dive into that Q&A pane right now and start asking questions as soon as they come up. We may answer some of them kind of in line with the presentation, but we'll likely have plenty of time at the end to be able to answer all of those questions. So keep them coming, even though we may not be answering it right away. Keep those questions rolling in, and we will stay on top of those as we go throughout the presentation today. Let me just introduce really quick our 4 presenters. I know and have worked with each of these 4 presenters for several years now, and I love the work that they're doing. They're great people. They're doing amazing things in their states. And I'm really excited that you're all going to have a chance to kind of hear from them and hear about the amazing stuff that they're doing in each of their states with the unique problems that they're trying to solve. We're going to start by hearing from Marcia Mays. Marcia Mays is the Strategic Safety Planning and Analysis Engineer at the West Virginia Department of Transportation. We're then going to hear a little bit from Catherine Ho. Catherine is the GIS section manager and geospatial data for geospatial data management. I don't know why that was so hard for the Oklahoma Transportation Cabinet. After that, we're going to hear from Amanda Heinze, who is the Traffic Crash Reporting Unit Manager for the Criminal Justice Information Center over at Michigan State Police. And then we will also hear from Joe Weiss, who is the Transportation Safety Analyst at the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety. The thing that's great about this group of people, and something that we really tried to do as well, is we tried to reach out across kind of the unique emphasis areas and specialties and focuses of the different people who use AASHTO safety. So we've got a real strong kind of engineering representation and a real strong kind of behavioral representation in these the webinar today. So really excited to hear from each of them. We're actually going to start with Marcia in West Virginia. So I'm going to turn my screen share off here, and we'll have Marcia get her screen share going. Marcia is going to be talking to us a little bit about the railway crossing program that they have in West Virginia and how they've been using that crash data to drive safety in their state. So Marcia, go ahead and take it away.
Good afternoon. Can you all see my screen?
Yep, we can see it fine.
All right. And you can hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk to you today about how West Virginia is using AASHTO safety to assist us in prioritizing our railway highway crossing safety improvement program. So just as a means of familiarity, the Railway Highway Crossing Program is a part of the HSIP program. Most know it by Section 130. There's $245 million made available annually on a national basis. These funds are used to eliminate hazards at public railway highway grade crossings, and in West Virginia, we receive about $2.15 million each year. So this program is eligible for all public crossings. That includes roadways as well as bike trails and pedestrian paths. This funding can be used to eliminate any type of hazard or bad situation at a rail crossing. It can include the installation of protective devices, things like crossbucks, signals, gates, those type things, to relocate crossings or consolidate crossings so that we eliminate that potential conflict, or to establish a grade separation in place of having a crossing. So in West Virginia, we were very blessed that many years ago when this program started, we had an engineer who was very passionate about safety and loved railroads. So he was very passionate about railroad safety. So in 1976, which was about the second year of the program, the state had a lot of incidents going on. We had 6 fatalities, 20 some injuries, and over 40 incidents with our rail crossings. And we have just under 2,000 crossings in the state. And that number was probably higher at that point. So since that time, through his hard work, we have seen a 58% reduction in incidents, 75% reduction in injuries at these crossings, and a 100% reduction in fatalities. It's in a very rare occasion for our state to have a railroad grade crossing fatality. So that's a great thing, but it's made it a little bit hard to use our funding, which is why as we brought AASHTO safety on board here for our state, we wanted to use this to help us to begin to figure out how do we prioritize our crossings. When there's very little data, it's hard to have a data-driven program and to make sure that you are using your funding in the best way possible. So we started out using AASHTO safety under the crash query, and we were filtering using the railroad grade crossing intersection type. And when we did that, we were finding about 102 crashes across a 5-year time frame. That's not easy to prioritize your crossings. So we worked with the folks in New Metric, and we developed a filter using the geolocation of each of the state's crossings. And we have identified all of the crashes occurring within 100 feet of the crossing. So if you have crashes occurring that closely to your crossing, you definitely have the potential for crossing related crashes. And that's how we're going to begin to prioritize our projects. So we went from showing about 100 crashes to 1,388 crashes. So that's a huge difference for us. So we're in the process of implementing the intersections portion of this, and we view railroad grade crossings as just another type of intersection. And so our vision here is to be able to take these the same filter that they've developed for us and to be able to help us to rank these crossings. Now I used our segment, which is a little wonky to do, but you'll get the idea and that filter together today. And you can see that when I rank them in my old filter manner, I only show 13 segments statewide that might have a potential crash situation that we would want to deal with. Or if I use crash rate, I could see 79 segments. When we utilize the new query or new filter, I should say, and use that geo location of each of the crossings, we go up to 80 segments based off of the number of crashes occurring, or over 100 segments would be available with the crash rate itself. So we're expecting to see similar numbers as we further our implementation of the intersections, and to help us to be able to prioritize and rank those crossings and begin to determine what we can do to make each of those safer and reduce the likelihood of having crashes at those. That's just more pictures of trains in West Virginia. Trains are definitely a large part of life here in West Virginia, from our coal and steel industries, all of those things. But so that was pretty short and sweet, but thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marcia. That was a phenomenal presentation. I know railway safety is something very important to West Virginia, and I know you guys have a long history of focusing on safety improvements, and you've done amazing work. It's great to see what you all are focusing on moving forward to continue to improve safety. We did have one question that came through really quick. And Marcia, I know that Marcia has a conflicting meeting, so she does need to leave a little early. So I'm just going to take a little bit of time here. If you have any questions for Marcia, go ahead and drop those in the Q&A right now. But we did get one question that says, Do you compare your own state rail crash data against FRA data?
We do. That's a part of our annual report that we do for the FHWA requirements, and we do compare that.
So, perfect. Thanks, Marcia. And thanks for the question, Nate. Right. So looks like we don't have any other questions coming through for Marcia. So if we do have more questions, again, drop those in there. Even if Marcia has to have left by the time we get to your question, we'll work with her. We'll get that answer, and then we'll make sure that we follow up with a response a little bit later. So Marcia, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us and to share that the great work that y'all are doing in West Virginia. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we are going to hand it over to Catherine Ho over at the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. Catherine is going to share with us a little bit about filtered data sharing and how they're using custom filters to help really share that safety data across Oklahoma. So Catherine, we'll go ahead and kick it over to you.
Thanks, Greg. And like Greg said earlier, I'm Catherine Ho. I work in the Geospatial Data Management Division at the Oklahoma Transportation Cabinet. And while I primarily work with GIS, I've been helping out with our Traffic Safety Division in getting on board with Numetric and setting up some of our data filters. So today I'd like to go over just a couple of filters that Numetric has helped us customize so that we can access our data better. So the first filter I'd like to go over is the holiday period filter. And so naturally, Oklahoma sees higher traffic volumes on our highways during holiday periods. This chart is just to show you all the peak daily traffic volumes on northbound and southbound I-35. I-35 is the main north-south interstate through Oklahoma, and these particular traffic volumes were recorded near the Oklahoma-Texas border. So for each group of traffic volumes for, let's say, 2021 for both southbound and northbound, you can see our average traffic volumes represented by the white AADT bar. And you can just see, just by comparing to all the holiday traffic volumes that we have here, there's a pretty significant increase in traffic volumes surrounding these holidays, like Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, and so on. However, you can also see we have on the chart the Red River Rivalry football game listed as a holiday. So the Red River Rivalry is a college football rivalry between Oklahoma and Texas, and this football game is held every fall at the Cotton Bowl Stadium in Dallas, Texas. So around this time, around this event, we get a lot of traffic traveling south from Oklahoma to Texas prior to the event, and then returning from Texas northbound back to Oklahoma after the event. And you can see from this chart that in multiple years, our traffic volumes from the football game exceed the traffic volumes on our more like standard holidays like 4th of July, Memorial Day, and even Christmas. So it was important to us that we're able to access the crashes surrounding not just our normal holiday timeframes, but also events specific to Oklahoma. So Numetric helped us create a holiday period filter so that we can more easily access the crashes around those holidays. As you can see, we have Thanksgiving, Memorial Day, Labor Day, and so on listed out here. So for the standard US recognized holiday periods, Numetric updates the date and time ranges annually. And Numetric gets those holiday date periods from the National Safety Council. And then we provide the Red River Rivalry dates so that we can consider that also as a high traffic event along with the standard US holidays. So the benefits of having this already set up in the filter is that we can save a lot of time on queries. So if you're asked to go look up something for Christmas, like that's pretty easy because it's December 25th every year. But if we're asked to look for something on Labor Day or the Red River Rivalry, we'd have to go up and look up the time of or the date that happened from year to year, because that's always changing. And then if we're asked to look up something for multiple years, that becomes tricky to put together in a query. So it's really easy to have the holiday period already set up, so we're not hunting for dates. We can replicate prior studies much more easily by having this filter. It's really convenient for dashboards because we can just create charts that show our holiday periods without doing a lot of extra fiddling with the dates. And it's just better for our reporting as well. We can be really clear about what we're looking at without having to add a ton of date filters to our filter bar to get these holiday periods. So just real quick look at that. I think the value that we're really seeing is being able to put specific date periods like that Red River rivalry game. So the second filter I would like to go over is the ODOT concurrent routes included filter, which I will refer to as just the concurrent filter because it's a really long name for this filter. The need for this filter was brought up by an engineer in our traffic safety engineering division, and it stems from the way that multiple highway routes can be designated onto the same stretch of highway. So in this example, these top 5 boxes are an example of the data fields that are included in ODOT's highway data. So all of our highway data is stored in a linear referencing system, and it includes a lot of fields, a lot of different data points for the highway, the configuration, all that kind of stuff, but also the routes that are on the highway. So for every segment of highway, we have a field called the ODOT route, and this is populated for every segment of highway. So in this case, the ODOT route is Interstate 444. We also have 4 fields for follow routes 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if the highway segment does have a second, third, or fourth follow route, that will be listed here. So this segment has State Highway 51, US 64, and US 75 as follow routes. Generally speaking, our crashes are queried by the ODOT route because that's sort of the first route field that's accessed in the data. However, depending on your situation, you can risk missing crashes, or you might have to do some more complicated querying to get what you're looking for. So in this example, we're looking at the south leg of Tulsa's interdispersal loop, or IDL. So this is a view of downtown Tulsa, and the IDL is this box right here of highways surrounding the downtown area, and the south leg right here is what these fields correspond to. So on the south leg, our ODOT route is I-444, and then we have the 3 follow routes that are listed above. So if I put on my filter bar, I'm looking at County of Tulsa, and then I ask for crashes that happen on highways where the ODOT route is US Route 75, I'm going to be missing a whole lot of highways through, or a whole lot of crashes through here, because US 75 is listed under follow route 3 rather than ODOT route. So you either miss crashes like that, or you can try adding some polygons on here. In this case, I've sort of hand-drawn in a polygon, but I've had to add a lot of extra filters. So I've had to add that I want the highway class to only be ODOT highway because I don't want all these extra side streets coming in. And then I've had to go in and exclude some highways because of the interchanges that this highway crosses through. So while this might work in specific scenarios, it's not as reliable and it's not very replicable. You can't really ask somebody else to come in and do a similar thing if you're the one who's hand-drawn out this polygon. So we asked a new metric to help us create a second filter. So now whenever we look for our crashes using the route, we have 2 versions of the filter. So the original one, or the first one that was set up, was the ODOT route. So this comes from the single field ODOT route, and each crash just gets 1 route. And this is basically just a single match that gets pulled out from the ODOT LRS. The new filter, which is our concurrent version, comes from multiple LRS fields. This is the ODOT route and follow routes 1 through 4. So each crash, instead of just getting 1 route, it now gets an array type of field where it can hold anywhere from 1 to 4 routes. And new metric derives this field using a shapefile provided by ODOT. So to give you a quick example of how the routes get assigned to a crash, here's just a couple of rows out of that shapefile table that we provided to new metric, where it lists the route ID, our from measure, which you can think of as a beginning mile point, and then the to measure, which you can think of as an ending mile point, and then the route name. So whenever new metric goes in and applies this table to the crashes, they're able to see that, let's say a crash occurred on this route, which is the same for both rows, and let's say it occurred at mile point 1, which is within our from and our to measure. New metric is able to take the crash, route, and mile point location and see that it occurred on a route that was designated with both Interstate 444 and US Highway 75. So that array field will hold both of these route names. So what's the difference? whenever we had the old ODOT route filter with US Route 70 US Route 75, we saw the big data gap. Once we use the concurrent version of the filter, we're no longer missing crashes. Everything's filled in and we're seeing the entire highway the way that we expected. And this works for, zoomed in sort of into Tulsa like that. We can do it for the whole county and you can see that there's a gap on the ODOT route version, and that's filled in completely on our concurrent routes version of the filter. And then you can do this all the way up to the state level. So even if you might get away with using sort of a polygon or a route ID or a segment ID for a small scale, this concurrent version of the filter is going to work at much larger scales or at smaller scales. So the benefits are really that you can see the entirety of the named route. We're going to get better results for corridor studies because we're not going to have to hunt down and make sure we're not missing any follow routes or anything like that. And this is going to be more reliable and replicable compared to polygon filtering. However, there is kind of a drawback that I just want to touch over really quick, and that's the potential to run into double counting with your crashes. So there's sort of two ways that you might end up double counting crashes. The first is that you cannot use the concurrent version of the routes in Chart Builder. So in this example, I have the same sort of county equals Tulsa filter on. This time I've used the route ID to just show us a half-mile stretch of road. So we're not using any sort of highway names, designations in the filter. This is purely just grabbing this section of highway. And we can see that we have 46 crashes on this half mile. Over here on the right side in the chart builder, I've created a pivot table and I've added the concurrent version of the route filter to the pivot table. So now the chart is telling me that on Interstate 244, I had 46 crashes. On US Route 75, I had 46 crashes. So the pivot table is going to tell me I had 92 crashes total. So because this stretch of highway has two route designations on it, it's considered Interstate 244 and it's designated as US 75. I'm going to get the correct number of crashes when I filter here. I'm not going to get the correct number of crashes if I use the concurrent version in Chart Builder. So something to look out for. And then the second way that you might double count crashes is if you're going to compare multiple queries on the same area together. So this example, I've done a similar query 3 different ways. So the first query, again, the county's Tulsa, and then the ODOT route concurrent routes included is set to US 75. And that corresponds to this little picture right here. And we see we have 1,118 crashes, and that's correct. Then I've kept the same filters, but I changed the route to Interstate 444 instead of US Route 75. And I'm seeing that I now have 148 crashes, which is also correct. And this is it's that area in the IDL that we looked at earlier that the arrow is pointing to. In the third query, I've retained, again, the County Tulsa filter and then the concurrent version of the filter. And I've put both US 75 and Interstate 444 onto the concurrent filter at the same time. And it's telling me we have 1,118 crashes. And this is also correct because for this particular highway scenario, Interstate 444 is totally concurrent with US 75. There's a complete overlap. So we're seeing still a total of 1,118 crashes because that's the amount of crashes located on that physical stretch of highway. So there's no double counting if you add multiple routes onto the filter in your query bar. All 3 of these queries are giving you the correct number. However, if you were to pull out, let's say you downloaded the report for the top query, US 75, and then you downloaded the report for your middle query on on Interstate 444, and you came back to your PDF reports like 6 months later, and you said, oh, I had 1,118 here, I had 148 here, and so I have a total of 1,266 crashes in the county. You would then be double counting it off of the reports after the fact. So to avoid doing this, we recommend that you just put all the routes that you're interested in onto the filter at one time so that the filter can evaluate your data properly, and then you won't be double counting after the fact. So because of these sort of couple potential areas to double count crashes, We do have to exercise more caution when you're using this filter, but we find that it's very effective when we need to look at particular highways, and just being able to get complete data through a corridor at a glance is kind of worth, dealing with that other, aspect of double counting. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Catherine. It doesn't look like we have any questions that have come in yet. But if anyone has any questions, go ahead and drop those into the Q&A window, and we will make sure to circle back and address those during the Q&A. Awesome. Thank you, Catherine. I love that both of those examples that you shared. I think the holiday periods specifically, I know for each state, we kind of have, their own unique holidays that they like to focus on. And so it's great to have that kind of flexibility. And then that named routes versus, the LRS route, that's an issue that it seems like every state that we talk with has. So thanks for kind of walking through and explaining your solutions that you've come up with for Oklahoma. So appreciate it. Thanks, Catherine. All right. So we are now going to hand it over to Amanda Heinze with Michigan State Police, and she's going to talk a little bit about the Freedom of Information Act requests and how they handle those in Michigan. So Amanda, take it away.
Good afternoon. Are you able to see my screens and hear me okay?
Yep, coming through.
Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect. I just want to start by saying thank you for the opportunity to share how Michigan uses the new metric tool to respond to our Freedom of Information requests, and then also just some Michigan crash data requests that we get regularly through the office. Okay, I wanted to start out with some quick Michigan crash facts. The Michigan State Police oversees the statewide crash data repository, and we also own the traffic crash form that all law enforcement agencies in Michigan are required to use for a reportable traffic crash. And then all of the analysis and quality control efforts for the traffic crash data are done in the traffic crash reporting unit. And we're made up of 11-person team, plus we have a dedicated IT specialist that is specifically responsible for our traffic crash reporting system. And that's the database name for all the crash data in Michigan. The traffic crash unit works closely with the Department of Transportation to share location and roadway information. And we also work closely with the Michigan Department of State to share driver and vehicle information so that their driver history and vehicle history can be updated at the state level. We receive approximately 300,000 traffic crashes each year in Michigan, and our unit is responsible for responding to all the crash data requests that is received. And there are many different types of data requests that we receive, and I wanted to share some of the most common ones. Receive a lot of requests from law enforcement agencies, from our traffic safety partners, including our DOT, county road commissions, and other traffic engineers. We receive requests for grant funding reporting, requests from the media, and then the public requests that we receive are through the Freedom of Information Act. That is a section within the MSP, and they send all those directly to us. The other types of requests, they might reach out to us directly and we'll respond to them without going through FOIA, but most of the public ones are going to come through FOIA to us. And these are the main type of requests that we get. They're going to be crash data that is specific to intersections or segments, requests to support, and then sometimes also oppose new construction projects and the traffic safety around those. Our law enforcement partners can use the crash data to create and monitor their traffic safety initiatives. And there are numerous requests for specific crash filters for the data, and that's by county, city, date range, injury. And then with those indicators, alcohol, drugs, and distracted driving are kind of our top requests that we receive to pull crash stats. We met with New Metric at a traffic records forum a few years ago, I think many years ago now it feels like, and we contracted with them to build what we call the Michigan Crash Analysis Tool, or MyCat, that's what we call it here at MSP. And we currently have crash query, dashboards, and network screening and sliding windows analysis available to us to run the crash statistics. And most of the FOIA requests that we do provide the data is using crash query, and I'll provide a couple examples of what we've provided to FOIA so they can respond to those data requests. I also want to start with the benefits of using MyCat. It's for us in the traffic crash reporting unit, and also for our partners, traffic safety and law enforcement. It's a very easy tool to use. It saves us a lot of time. The data is accurate. We are checking the numbers regularly. We get a report every week that we're checking to make sure the numbers are matching. So we're constantly in there looking to make sure the data is correct. Then you can use the PDFs. You can make a report, and it's in a professional PDF for us to share with anybody who's requesting the report. And then the ability to download the raw data is also very helpful when we're responding to these crashes. And I want to talk a little bit real quickly about how we used to respond to these FOIA requests prior to using MyCat. We would have to go through a much more manual process. We would have to use our mapping system and look up the physical reference number, mile points, any intersection ID. We're pulling all of that information and manually entering it into a SQL query. And then that's obviously open for errors as we type that in. From there, we'd create a spreadsheet. We have to confirm the accuracy of the data, and then we'd have to kind of pretty it up by putting a header on there, put the criteria on there, and then save it as a PDF. So that whole process could take, depending on how big of a request it is, it could take quite a bit of time just to fulfill one data request or one FOIA request. So this specific, I have two examples that I want to share with you. And this one is specifically going to be showing crashes on I-196 between Holland and Grand Rapids, and it was for the year 2022. That was the request that came in. So since now using MyCat, we were able to respond to this data request, FOIA request, fairly easily, just by drawing the polygon, putting in the roadway name. We had our filters on the date range. And then from there, we would just run the report and save it as a PDF. So we have this PDF that we can share with FOIA. Or if we're going to be giving them a listing of all of the crash IDs, we can easily pull that through downloading the raw data, give them the crash IDs, and they can pull those crash images to send to the requester so much easier. It saved us, each request saves us a tremendous amount of time. We know that it's accurate because of all of the back and forth. We look at the data to make sure it's accurate, like I said in the previous slide. And it looks professional, and it's so easy to download and have that information available. So that's the first example of one of the FOIA requests that we receive. Another example is for an Amish involved. We have typically around the summertime, we do have some crashes that involve the Amish community. And what we needed to be able, we'd get requests from media from asking about how many Amish involved horse and buggy crashes occurred and where did they occur. So we were able to, first we worked with Numetric to come up with an indicator. We set it, or a filter, where we're looking at the narrative for certain horse, buggy, Amish, those different types of keywords. So we did that. And then since then, we've made our own indicator in our TCRS database. But starting out, that's how we started it. Numetric was able to build that indicator for us, and we're very easily able to pull this data. Again, know that it's accurate. We're doing a lot of quality control in the back end here in the unit to make sure that those keywords are showing up and make sure it can be flagged as an Amish involved crash. And then again, we're able to easily pull up through the raw table those crash IDs so that our FOIA section can pull those images if that's what they're looking for, or if they're just looking for this type of Excel spreadsheet, we could have it right there easily for them to share. Those are the two examples that I had. It's kind of quick, but if anybody has any questions, please let me know. We use MyCat for so many different things and different data requests. It's just been tremendous time saver for our unit and just helping us respond to all those type of requests that we receive. So I thank you very much for allowing me to present.
Perfect. Thanks, Amanda. Great presentation. I love it. I think everyone's kind of in that situation where they receive, those data requests, whether it's from someone internal, another department, or the public. I think it's a real common problem that everyone has. So great example, and thanks for sharing that with us. I know we are a little tight on time, so we are going to just go ahead and hop over now to Joe with the New Jersey Division of Highway Safety. Joe is going to share with us a little bit about behavioral countermeasures and some of the work that they're doing in New Jersey to focus on that. So just another quick reminder, questions, keep them coming through the Q&A window, and we'll make sure that we address those at the end. So Joe, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, my name is Joseph Weiss. I'm a transportation safety analyst over at the Division of Highway Traffic Safety of New Jersey. I'm going to kind of quickly go over this as quick as I can. It's good you guys saved the guy from New Jersey for last because we could talk super fast. As I was kind of going through, we were populating our highway safety plan from year to year. We're pulling in all of these countermeasures from the countermeasures that work 10th, 11th edition that NHTSA has provided. And, one of the things that kind of came to our attention was, how can we measure this? Are there any of these countermeasures that we can compute, whether it's through crash statistics or citation statistics? So in this case, I'm going to kind of go over the way we're utilizing it for crash statistics. So we took some of the countermeasures. Again, you can reach out to me and I can give you all of the specifics without getting into the weeds today. But we added all the logic in the back end in Numeric to be able to search for behavioral countermeasures. So I believe there's 8 or 9 of them from a list of, I don't know how many actual countermeasures are in the manual itself, but many of them pertain to litigation and things along those lines, things that crashes aren't going to measure. So the behavioral countermeasures that we could measure with crashes or crash outcomes, we were able to kind of create the logic for in the back end. So we have older driver enforcement, high visibility speed, drug driving, just total high visibility saturation, patrol for impairment, seatbelt use. We even have ones for publicized sobriety checkpoints. So it'll even exclude roadways where, officers can't just stop traffic on interstate highways or things along those lines. Cell phone distracted driving hotspots and youth impairment programs as well. So I just kind of wanted to give you a state, county, local example of one of the ways that New Jersey utilizes our behavioral countermeasures. So the stately example I just pulled up real fast, and I can recreate this, is looking at over the past 5+ years. Our data through 24 isn't complete. For the past 5+ years, where could high visibility speed enforcement benefited or mitigated rather crashes on our state highway system? So we're able to filter for crashes that would look for those crashes involving those high rates of speed. And then I truncated it or queried for just state police involved crashes. So from there, I'm able to get a whole list of metrics of when these crashes take place. Get rid of this bubble. January seems to be kind of like a hot spot or a hot time, almost 12% of the crashes. I'm even able to look at our holiday periods. So almost 2% or 1.5% of our crashes happen just on the New Year's Eve period alone. So just for hypothetical and example purposes, the HCS want to partner with our state police to do a high visibility speed enforcement campaign. This is something maybe outside of a national funded campaign. So maybe I'll isolate something like January and February. This is the time period where nearly 25% of all of the high rates of speed involved crashes that New Jersey State Police report that's when they are occurring, or at least over the last 5+ years. So from here, we're able to generate lists. I know a lot of you are familiar with Numeric and kind of its inner workings. From here, we can create lists of, breakdowns by town or by county. Right now, we're focusing kind of on the New Jersey State Police as its own entity. I can open up this query in, say, our sliding window analysis, current date range. Slow. So what we end up with an output is a list of essentially all of the hotspots or potential locations where the New Jersey State Police could kind of deploy their resources during the months of January and February to combat those high visibility, the high rates of speed involved crashes. From here, we can create their specialized reports that we can generate, and provide to state police, so they know exactly along these. I created 5-mile specific corridors along our state highways. So now they know exactly where these crashes with high rates of speed are occurring. So the number one 5-mile location is on New Jersey Turnpike between 41 and 46, has a crash rate of 5.6, a weighted score of 756. Very, decently high severe percentage. And then it gives you kind of like a roadway histogram of exactly where along this 5-mile corridor these crashes are occurring. So if we were to deploy kind of like a high visibility saturation patrol, it would probably be before or after some of these mileposts to deter those folks from continuing at those high rates of speed. Some of them obviously are just kind of sporadic throughout the entire 5-mile corridor. But again, it's a tool and a resource that we can provide our state police officers with, much more accuracy, utilizing our data and kind of honing in on a specific behavioral kind of phenomena that's occurring on our roadways. At the county level, we have kind of county grant administrators in the state of New Jersey, not in every single county, but in several of our counties. And we work with this administrator to basically administer the rest of the mobilization grants and a lot of our year-long grants that we have with the law enforcement entities within those respective counties. So in this example, we've partnered with Middlesex County to kind of identify that they have the second highest volume of crashes in the state of New Jersey. For reference, they call it the crossroads of New Jersey because of the many different highways that kind of intersect throughout this county. So we have a huge, very dynamic sample size of individuals traveling in and through this corridor. So we're able to kind of locate and isolate all of the occurrences where seatbelt enforcement could benefit. So anywhere where there was someone in the front or rear seat that were involved in a crash that were not wearing his or her seatbelt over the last 5+ years. From here, we produce a list of different metrics. We can add any different characteristics in here, such as driver age groups, holiday periods. We can kind of customize any of these reports as we see fit. And we provide this list to the county administrators to, kind of give them that insight as to, what are the things that the grantees should be looking into in their respective townships. Some of the high class offenders, rather the areas that have the highest rates of, in this case, seatbelt non-compliance. We'll create a report specifically for them as well. From here, again, you can now open this into our network screening, but in our segments application, use the same date range as well. And the difference between the segments application and the sliding window application is that sliding window application, which is what we were looking at just a moment ago with the New Jersey State Police speed corridors, is that the sliding window analysis allows me to change my window length anywhere from 0.1 miles up to 10 miles in length. So I can apply and modify, customize, basically find those moving hotspots, if you will. I can ignore or include overlapping segments if I so choose. In this case, I turned off overlaps. I'm going to let that load. Here are 10-mile segments. But in this case, for Middlesex, I'm opening it in the network screening segments application. And the difference with this is that these segments are static. So every single time we upload new data to the network screening segments application, the data in the back end, all of the ranking and the scores and the weights will automatically adjust and auto-populate. So as we continue to fund and work with Middlesex to combat seatbelt noncompliance in our crashes, we can provide them with the resources with, not just overall totals of, hey, New Brunswick, you had 200 crashes where someone wasn't wearing their seatbelt. Do better next year. Now we can go in and say, hey, New Brunswick, not only did you have those 200 crashes, but these are the corridors in which they're occurring in. Number 4 corridor is occurring right here on Route 26, heading right into town. This might be a decent seatbelt checkpoint location for you to set up. The number 1 location is right here in Highland Park, just north of New Brunswick. So again, we can utilize this screening list to give to our county administrators to kind of track this. And then again, over time, as we include and import more and more data as time goes on, we can evaluate and rank these corridors to see how they've improved. This one doesn't get ranked, of course. I don't know where my ranks went. Usually there's typically a ranking kind of where this segment has ranked in time. I'm not too sure where it is right now. All right, for sake of time, let's jump into local real fast. Here we're looking at the Toms River Township and kind of where to set up those publicized sobriety checkpoints. Again, I'm able to go in, and this is looking for anywhere where there's crashes, where there's a drug and or alcohol impaired driver involved in a crash over the last 5+ years, but in a location or on a roadway that the Toms River Township Police Department could enforce and or set up a DUI checkpoint. So it's going to exclude major highways, our Garden State Parkway. It's really just going to kind of bring it down to that local roadway section. So again, from our starting point, we're able to utilize some of this information that we find in the metrics pane on the right, 385 impaired involved crashes on these local municipal roads and county roadways. This is kind of when they're taking place. And again, I can open up that sliding window analysis or segment analysis and utilize this resource for Toms River specifically to say, okay, here's some high visibility enforcement funding to set up some publicized sobriety checkpoints. We highly recommend you setting them up in these locations. This is the number 1 spot. There was 12 involved crashes in the past 5 years. They're averaging two something a year. So again, this is just a better way of giving us those tools to reach out again to the state, county, and local levels to not just say, hey, you have a problem and you have a traffic related safety issue occurring in your town, and they say, yeah, we know, what are we supposed to do about it? Now we have these tools available to us where we can kind of take it that next step further and say, well, this is where we recommend going, and this is where we recommend deploying your resources. And again, we can get all the way down to that granular level of, you want to set up a campaign on a weekend in January and February, we can tell you where the most beneficial spots would be to find the most fish in a barrel, so to speak. So that's all I have for the sake of time. Thank you all for listening to my spiel. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Joe's been a customer of ours, and we partnered with him for a long time. And he really led out a lot of this work on the behavioral countermeasures with those countermeasures that work. And it's been a huge help to the state of New Jersey, but also a lot of other partner states have benefited from that work that Joe kind of led out over there in New Jersey. So thanks for walking us through that. A fantastic example of how to not just give the data to people, but like give them the data in a way that allows them to make a decision. I think it obviously shows that you work and partner really closely with these law enforcement agencies, Joe, and getting, improving safety and driving in their communities. So great example. Thanks for sharing that with us. I know that we are really short on time, and we've had a couple questions come through the Q&A. I think due to time constraints, we're probably just going to postpone the Q&A session. If you have any questions, continue to drop those in the Q&A window, and we will just answer those. We'll work with the presenters to get answers back to those, and we'll make sure to include that in the email that goes out. Ryan, I did have just one more thing, if that's okay, before we kick it back over to you to wrap up.
Go for it, Greg.
Perfect. So I wanted to mention really quickly, these topics that we've gone over today, these safety processes, these are something that we're working really closely with all of our partner states to document. As I mentioned, this is one of the big values that we've seen as we get groups of users together as they start talking about best practices. And I think Joe's example from New Jersey, again, really pioneered a lot of work in this behavioral countermeasures with our partners. It started there. We worked with Joe to build this program out and this initiative out, and we've seen it roll out and impact many of our partner states, focusing on behavioral countermeasures and focusing on that type of crash. So with that kind of in mind, I wanted to just show really quick something that we've been working on documenting. So on our website on newmetric.com, if you go under our resources tab, you can actually see our safety processes. And here we have a growing list of safety processes that have actually been documented out. And if we see here with this behavioral countermeasures example, we actually go through and talk about how states are using these behavioral countermeasures to improve safety. And here's actually an example that we worked with the New Jersey Division of Highway and Traffic Safety to talk about and to show those best practices and share them across states. So this is something that we're really excited to be sharing with everyone. So I just wanted to kind of plug that really quick. If you're interested in learning more about these safety processes, you can go to our website, and then again, just under resources right there, you'll see the safety processes information. So it's a continually growing and evolving list. We're always adding more and more of those processes as things go on. So I just wanted to kind of to plug that. If this is something that you're interested in, there's always more information available. So awesome. Well, I think we'll go ahead and kick it back over to you, Ryan. Is there anything else before we wrap up?
Yeah, Greg, that was great. Thank you. I think that's all. I appreciate it. There might have been one more question that fell in. It looks like they're just looking forward for some more webinars. So we will definitely have some more webinars. Like I said, these will all be posted after the meeting. So if you have any questions or things like that that come up, you have my email address from the invite. Shoot me an email. I can get in touch with one of the presenters and get you an answer. Look forward for an email coming out after with a link to the recording. And last but not least, if you have a webinar topic you'd like us to talk on, or you have an idea, or you're interested in presenting something, please reach out to me and share that idea, and we can work with New Metric team here to try to put on a webinar that people find of interest. But with that, thank you for your time this afternoon, everyone. I appreciate it. Bye.